So, welcome to dWELL Recovery. We started dWELL back in December 1st of 2020. I think we're the only people that started a recovery house in New York City in the midst of a pandemic. But we did it because we felt very strongly about the need for this resource in New York City and really across the country. As many of you guys have told me over the years, we as an organization at the dorm have been open for 11 years. And one of our biggest challenges has been really supported living. We offer an independent living model, and one of the requests that have always been made is having that sort of integrated recovery supported living model attached to it. We worked historically with sober livings throughout New York City and Washington, D.C., and came a long way in terms of offering that sort of supported living experience. But what we quickly realized is there are, of course, some missing links that we wanted to highlight in what we're doing at dWELL. Number one is mental health. I think historically, even if we look at the language attached to most supported livings, it's called sober living. That informs a particular profile, if you will. At the dorm, as you all well know, we treat primary mental health. That's probably about 70% of the folks that we treat. And I think that's consistent with what we're seeing as far as young people needing intensive support in New York City and in Washington, D.C., is the complexity around mental illness is getting higher and higher as far as its level of acuity. So in looking at creating a recovery house, in addition, we're looking at really changing language, changing an understanding, changing the type of profile that we can really handle and support, both from a mental health perspective, also from a gender-affirming perspective. I think historically, sober livings have really seen gender as much more binary. Male houses, female houses, and in creating treatment resources in New York City, we really aim to be affirming as far as where the young people wants to live. We also want to be affirming in our ability to treat them within community and to reside in a community that's also gender affirming. No surprise, being in these cities, we tend to find a larger proportionate of folks that consider themselves more gender non-binary or transitioning or are part of the trans community. And to be able to offer a more gender affirming living experience is really what we aim to accomplish in creating dWELL as well. The last piece is skills learning. I think as we looked at sort of the trajectory of sober living, it's become more luxurious, if you will. Cooks, cooking on your behalf, cleaners, cleaning on your behalf. A lot of the sort of limitations around the skills-based learning that we know so many of our folks are lacking and need is really being done for the individual. And so in creating dWELL as well, we wanted to create a community that is understanding, related to sort of the mental health need and awareness and skill set. It's affirming in terms of gender. In addition to that, it's really teaching a lot of the tangible life skills that we know are so instrumental in sustaining independent living. And lastly, it's young adult focused. I think a lot of supported living over the years has been adults, and adults are classified as 18 and up. We at the dorm treat 18 to 30. dWELL also services 18 to 30 as well. So it's really setting up a community-based living where folks are finding their peer, they're finding their community, they're finding their people. So as I mentioned earlier, welcome to dWELL Recovery. This is a gender-affirming mental health recovery housing that promotes skills-based learning and community support for young adults. Right now, we have one location on the Upper West Side. It's on 71st and Broadway. Our aim is to really begin this model, as I mentioned, about 90 days ago. We have 15 beds at dWELL. We'll be talking to you more throughout this presentation about what it is we're offering, what a day in the life looks like, how we really define those three channels that I discussed, and then more so how we're looking to expand and develop this as a model. We did set this up as an affiliate of the dorm, but it is an independent program from the dorm. And we did that intentionally because we find that not only people that are, gaining treatment at the dorm can access this as a resource, but we also find there's just as many young people that are being treated elsewhere that can also access dWELL as a resource as well. The common theme between dWELL and the dorm is the ownership. Both programs are owned by Amanda Fialk and myself. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to dig in.
Thanks, John. It's good to have everybody here. It's exciting to talk about this. It's certainly a project that has been on our minds for quite some time, as we've experienced sort of voids and gaps in services specifically for young adults who struggle more primarily with mental health, eating disorders, and as John was saying, for young people who might not see gender in binary terms. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about what goes on at dWELL and what we like to talk about as the dWELL difference. So first and foremost, we really wanted to create a recovery house for people. Not a men's house versus a woman's house, a recovery house that was affirming of however somebody identified. What we know is that our LGBTQ young adults are at increased risk for things like anxiety, depression, trauma, suicide. They're more likely to struggle with substance use, eating disorders. And sadly, a lot of our clients are coming from homes that are extraordinarily non-affirming, communities that are non-affirming, and also social environments and healthcare systems that are non-affirming. And we really wanted to take a look at how we could change this. As John also said, at the dorm, I would say at any given time, about 30% of our clients identify as LGBTQ+. And we wanted to be mindful of how to create a recovery living environment that was affirming of them as well. So in looking at how, to create an affirming house, it's not just about saying, okay, whether you identify as male, female, trans, cis, non-cis, you're welcome in the house. That's one thing, but it's another thing to really create a community that is affirming. And we do that by really training our staff, by setting community rules and standards within the house so that people are learning about what it means to be gender affirming, because it is a learning process and not everybody understands how to be gender affirming. Having regular house meetings where individuals can talk about issues and can talk to their peers about maybe times that they've experienced some of their language, maybe as non-affirming. And of course, having staff available 24/7 who are affirming to the genders that are represented in the house. A lot of recovery house models have one overnight staff person, and we really wanted to go in a different direction from that by having multiple staff present so that all genders are represented and affirming staff is available 24/7 to our clients. The next thing that we really wanted to look at was how to create a recovery house specifically for mental health. I think that sober houses have done an amazing job at laying the groundwork for creating a recovery house model. And we just wanted to take it one step further because a lot of our clients don't come to us with a primary substance use problem. Some of them do, but the majority are coming really more with a primary mental illness. And maybe they're using substances to self-medicate, and that's more secondary. Many of our clients are coming to us with eating disorders involved, and there are so many resources out there for individuals who are primary addiction, and not as many resources out there for those who are more primary mental health. So yes, of course, we're still doing drug testing. And of course, for our clients who use substances, we're still going to 12-step meetings and doing all the wonderful things that we've learned from sober houses that have been around for years and years and years. However, we also really wanted to look at mental health and the unique and specific needs of those with primary mental illness in recovery housing environments, such as compromised ADLs, compromised social skills. Many of our clients don't really know how to live independently. They've never lived successfully independently, cooked their own food, cleaned their own rooms, did their laundry, created calendars of social events, got out of their apartments on a daily basis to socialize. And these are all things that we are teaching them in the recovery house so that they can take those skills with them. The other thing is that young adulthood in and of itself is a distinctive developmental stage. And that stage, as we all know who work with young adults, they have their own developmental challenges. And we wanted to create a house where it was truly for young adults, and only young adults between the ages of 18 and 30 are living in the house, so that we could focus on their needs, their very specific needs that are separate and aside from the needs of an adolescent or the needs of a 40-year-old. So this model is really challenging the status quo in numerous ways, which I'm going to get into in more detail in slides to come. But just to hit on a couple of points, we wanted to look at staff and the way that we were going to staff this recovery house. You know, the leaders, the directors of the house and the assistant directors have clinical backgrounds. And like other recovery houses, many of our RAs, resident advisors, are currently in school, getting master's degrees in social work, psychology. We wanted to provide a ton of training for them. So we use very licensed, experienced clinical staff to come in at least twice a month to do some trainings for the staff where they can learn about mental illness, they can learn about DBT, they can learn about trauma, they can learn about motivational interviewing. So they are constantly getting trainings and learning and growing. Also, the way that we collaborate with outside providers. The standard is that outside providers are collaborated with at a minimum on a weekly basis, usually every day in the beginning, at least when clients first move in. And that happens whether a client is a client at the dorm or whether the client is doing an outpatient program outside of the dorm. The collaboration with outside providers, especially working with young adults, is imperative to having a united treatment team and a united front, and helps prevent splitting and all of those other things that we see happen all the time. And then the last thing with staffing is that we wanted to staff up. We wanted to have more staff and err on the side of having too many staff members present than too little staff members present. So, you know, the house at any given time will always have a very, very, very low client to staff ratio so that, you know, things don't fall through the cracks. What we often find is the first 2-3 weeks of a client moving in is an adjustment period, and they require a lot of attention, and they need a lot of attention, and they deserve a lot of attention. And we want to make sure that staff are there to provide that attention that they need. The next ways that we really wanted to challenge the status quo is by really honing in on this skills-based learning and general ADLs, because this is where our young adult clients tend to struggle the most. Budgeting, nutrition, chores, technology, medication. These are the things that we want them to master so that when they leave dWELL and move into their own apartment, we are setting them up for success. And I'll get more into this in slides to come. So on the next slide, we have, and this is so fun, and the clients have really, really enjoyed this. We have our registered dietitians helping the clients at dWELL to learn how to grocery shop, to learn how to prepare meals in a manner that's congruent with health and wellness. A lot of clients come to us, not all, actually we've had 2 clients that have come in who are like master chefs, and every time you would walk into to dWELL, the house just smelled like amazing. But for the most part, many of our clients come to us and they don't know how to cook, and they don't even know how to make grocery lists. They don't know how to adhere to a budget. They have, by and large, skipped breakfast, maybe gotten a snack for lunch, and then ordered Seamless or Uber Eats at night. And this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable for independent living when they move out of dWELL. So we wanted to teach them, and we do teach them, how to build balanced meals, how to portion their plates, ideas for quick meals, and then how to create a meal plan for the week, how to go grocery shopping for the week, how to budget for the week. And then we cook meals together. Each unit has its own separate kitchen in addition to the main kitchen. So we'll have cook-offs, and have, community meals together. But this is not a model where a chef is coming and cooking all their meals for them, because they will not be able to take that chef with them to their own individual apartment. So we really want to teach them how to do these things on their own. And luckily, we have Trader Joe's and Fairway both a block away from us, so they have no excuse, and grocery trips are fun. The next thing, and this is example of chores. Residents are responsible for keeping, their own space in a manner that is congruent with health and wellness. We know that insides and outsides match, and if you're feeling bad on the outside, or if you're keeping your outside spaces in a manner that's chaotic, you're probably going to feel pretty chaotic on the inside as well. So we're asking them to we have expectations around how they keep their own personal space in their own individual units, and then also contributing to making sure that community spaces are kept in a certain way too. Of course, we have people that come in and clean with COVID protocols, et cetera, but it is not to pick up their clothes off the floor. There are expectations, and there are things that they need to do. Again, when they move into their own apartments, they're going to need to learn how. We've had clients that didn't know how to clean like a countertop. Like, do you use Windex? Do I use bleach? Do I use disinfectant? What do I do here? Can I use a paper towel? Can I use the same sponge that I clean my dishes? Just no understanding of how to keep a clean, sanitary space. So we are supporting them in doing so while they are with us. Technology. This is also, I think probably much more specific to adolescents and young adults. Technology is a part of their lives. Technology is here, and it's here to stay, and it's gotten more prominent during COVID times. We know that when clients are going to be moving into their own apartments, that they're going to take their computer with them. They're going to take their phone with them. They will probably get an Xbox and have that with them. So now, while we have them in a more contained environment, is a time to help them to learn how to have a healthy relationship with technology. Some clients come in and they're able to self-regulate really well. Other clients are not. So we will come up with individualized technology plans. For all clients, there's a shutdown period at a certain point in time. There's shutdown zones, at dinner tables, first thing in the morning, during morning meditations, where we just want to get them into healthy habits. And for other clients, they need us to hold on to their technology while they go to sleep at night, because the temptation is too great. And we are working alongside clinical teams to slowly titrate technology back into their life, so that when they move out, they are able to manage it in a manner that is healthy. I think it's really great when clinical teams have eyes and ears 24/7 on their clients, especially when it comes to technology, because often what they report is not what is actually happening. And we're able to report back to the clinical teams what we're observing in real time, so we can come up with more effective treatment planning. around this specific topic. We have 3 progressive phases of supported living at dWELL, ranging from the most intensive, where most often clients will begin their journey. They might need to be chaperoned to and from treatment program. They are certainly receiving daily medication reminders. We store all medications, but we will be reminding these clients. We will be helping them to budget by holding on to a certain amount of cash or monitoring bank accounts. They will be present at all of our events, on-site dinners, weekend activities. They probably aren't ready to go home for home visits. Phase 2, they're beginning to develop some skills of independence, and they're getting a little bit more rope in terms of being able to go places on their own. We're expecting them to come to us a little bit in the morning and say, hey, in 15 minutes, I need to take my meds. Let's go get them from my locker. They can have some overnights with family once again at this phase. And then at stage 3, we're really moving into self-actualization and autonomy. So we are, in essence, in this stage, having them practice living independently under our roof. They should be at this point in time not be needing to be reminded to turn their electronics off and go to sleep. They should be waking up in the morning on their own without a resident advisor needing to wake them up, going over to the medication area and saying, hey, it's my time to take my medication right now, having more overnights with family, maybe going away for a weekend. The more that they can practice in this stage before moving on to their own actual apartment, the better. What's interesting with these 3 phases is that not all residents have to start at phase 1. They start at the phase that is clinically appropriate. And again, this is where we rely on outside clinical teams to tell us what stage is most appropriate for that client. And it might be that they need to start at phase 1, but they don't need a chaperone. They need everything else in phase 1 except for that. And we can certainly be flexible and organic, but we take our cues from the outside clinical teams when it comes to how to proceed through these phases and what phases to start at. And on the reverse side, somebody might get to a phase 3 and then have a relapse or have a really bad week at school and temporarily need to get more supports in place that they hadn't had for quite some time. And we can do that too. So it is organic and it is according to clinical need. And with that, I am going to turn the presentation over to James, who is going to talk all about what a day and a week in the life at dWELL might look like for some of our clients.
Thank you so much, John and Amanda, for that lovely presentation. Again, I'm James. I am the program director at dWELL, and I know Amanda just kind of shared a pretty dense version of what happens at dWELL, but I also wanted to just talk about, just the daily activities and what it would look like for a resident that would be living at dWELL. So like we were talking about before, we do have 24/7 gender affirming staff on site. They are getting trained as much as we possibly can. Like Amanda was saying, we are trying to look for RAs that are in school for social work or for psychology that really want to be a part of this type of work, that are really dedicated to helping these residents grow and become the independent adults that they strive to be. We also do have the chaperone services for the phase 1s, or if people even just have anxiety in certain areas, maybe it might be having anxiety with grocery shopping or going to do other types of activities, and they just want a little bit more support. We have that staff to show them, to give them that comfort, to take them to and from appointments, to the dorm and back, and anything in between. When it comes to the registered dietitians, we also weekly talk to the registered dietitians on every single resident and making sure that their meals are where they should be. If they have dietary restrictions, that we're being very aware of that and we're implementing meals that can be nutritious for them. If they have any deficiencies, things like that, just we're constantly talking so that we can help provide the residents with the best nutritional needs that they can get. Also, as this time has been crazy for all of us, we've all had to, change the way we run our lives and run our businesses. So we've implemented a lot of different things that are CDC compliant to deal with COVID, in terms of having a cleaning crew come 6 days a week to sanitize all the areas, all the rooms, so that we're, staying safe. We have sanitizing dispensers on every floor. We also ask that everyone wear a mask in common areas, as well as staying socially distanced while in the common areas. So we just want to be as safe as possible. And luckily, vaccines are now available. So when anyone moves into dWELL, one of the first things that we talk about is if they're interested in getting vaccinated. And if so, we try to find them an appointment as soon as possible. It's actually been pretty incredible because most of our residents right now have at least the first dose, if not the second. So it kind of helps relieve that overwhelming, floating pressure on everyone about staying safe, so that they can really focus on what they're here for, what they need to work on, so that they can get to the places that they want to be and live that life that they want. To also talk about more of the services, I wanted to go a little bit more into the collaboration between myself and Jamie, the assistant program director, and how we discuss what's going on with every resident's individual progress with their clinical team as well as their family. With the families, we do usually schedule a weekly phone call where we talk about the last week and the progress that's being made, the strengths, and sometimes what struggles are being worked on, so we can help support them. We are also talking to clinical providers. I would say, like Amanda was saying, minimum a week, but usually it is every single day, all the day, because we just want to be in constant communication. We want to make sure that everything is being taken care of, everything is aware on all sides, so that we can provide that support that these residents need. We also do drug testing on site twice a week at random, but we also do it under suspicion if necessary. All residents that stay at dWELL, even if they're not here for substance use disorder, have to be drug tested, because we also want to make sure that everyone is safe here, no one is feeling triggered or anything like that. And also just making sure that nothing is going wrong with, in terms of, medications and stuff, so that we make sure that everything is staying focused on what we're trying to achieve and getting the help for the residents that they need. With medications, every week on a Monday, we have sit downs with every single resident separately with staff to fill out their medication organizers, so that, we're keeping everything as safe as possible, so that there's no mistaking of meds. I took a nighttime med during the day or anything like that. So we can really structure it out and show them how they should plan out their week in terms of their medication, so that they're taking it on time. It is also then locked in a locker for every individual resident. All medication is then taken under staff surveillance. We do not administer it, but we do watch them, and we do a mouth check just to make sure that the medications were ingested. After they have taken their medications, they will sit in the common room for about two to 3 minutes, just to make sure that, everything is going smoothly. After that, we then log in what time the resident had surveillanced the medication, and we log it into our medication binder, which then gets stored, so that we have the time, the date, making sure that every single day is filled out, so that, they're getting their medications on time and everything is going smoothly. There are also definitely certain needs for other residents that are very individualized, and one of them might be kosher. We do deal with some kosher residents that are really trying to stay focused on their religious practices, and we want to make sure that they're being taken care of as well. In terms of that, we have a kosher microwave, we have kosher pots and pans, all the things that they might need stored away, so that they know that it is clean and it is ready for them to be used so that they feel more comfortable with what they're cooking and knowing that it hasn't been touched by other things. We also, have to accommodate allergies and learn about that. So anytime someone is moving in, we also ask about, do you have any allergies that we should be aware of so that we can store things that you might be allergic to in different areas of the apartment or in different areas of the house, just to make sure that everyone is staying safe, everyone is feeling comfortable, and they're not uneasy about food, because we have a lot of residents that come in here that struggle with food, and trying to make sure that they get the best support that they can. We also do a laundry service at the moment due to COVID. So every week on a Monday, everyone brings down their laundry and we send it out to a laundry service and it gets brought back on the next day. But in times once COVID starts to end, we are going to shift more towards a laundromat system where a staff member will bring the residents to the laundromat, show them kind of how to get those life skills, because when they move out into an apartment, I mean, it would be amazing if you have laundry washers and dryers in your apartment, but for the most part, when people move into an apartment, they're not going to have that, and they're going to have to use a laundromat. So we want them to learn those skills to, how to use the detergent, when to use the bleach and not on the colors and things like that. So that's something we do plan on using once COVID starts to subside. We also do weekly activity schedules. So every week we are always discussing with the residents because we want them involved. We don't want to put on a weekend activity that they're not interested in and saying like, you have to go. We want them to come with us and collaborate so that we can talk about what would be something really fun. Again, because of COVID, there's a lot of different things that we've had to kind of get creative on. Luckily, it's getting really nice out, so we've been able to have different sports activities, whether it's basketball, soccer, throwing a football around. We've also been able to go to walks on the High Line. I think we are thinking about this weekend going to the Brooklyn Bridge and walking the Brooklyn Bridge. We also do different museums and painting projects, just really trying to get things to be really structured for them so that they can feel that there is stuff to do, because especially on the weekends during COVID, it's hard to get out because it feels like there's nothing to do. But we want to show them and provide them that there is different things that you can do and different opportunities that they might not have seen that they have an interest in, whether it be like painting and things like that. We've had residents that have never painted before, and when we started doing it as a group, they've been so happy about it and never realized that they do have this side of them that is so creative, and it's finally coming out. So we always are looking for different activities and always talking with the residents about it. And, very excited for times to come so that we can plan more cool activities for them. When it comes to mentoring and alumni, as you all know, we're pretty new. So we don't have too much alumni or mentorship yet. We do constantly talk to the people that do move out. And if they're fully vaccinated, we will allow them to come back for a little bit just to show the residents it works. They're able to succeed and trust the process. But as time goes on and we get more alumni, we're going to be creating a whole new space for mentorship and really help engage the community as a whole rather than just in the house, and show that this will always be a safe place and home. So lastly, I would like to also talk about just the weekly schedule and kind of run through it pretty quickly, just to talk about what a resident's day would look like for their week. So every morning between Monday and Friday, the wake ups are at 8 o'clock. And let's be real, they're not going to be up right away at 8 o'clock. So we do constant wake ups at 8 o'clock, 8:10, 8:20. So we do it every 10 minutes until 8:45. It is mandatory that everyone comes down so that we can do morning reflection. We then read from a morning reflection book and then discuss how it affects us. And we then talk about how it relates to us and then what's going on during our day. During the rest of the day, they are going to their groups and making sure that everything is going well. They're going all to their therapy groups. Then after that, They come back, we'll do maybe a health and wellness thing where it would be a small workout in the rooms, where we'll watch a workout video on the TV in the community room, just to get the body moving a little bit. By 5:30, we are having dinner, whether it's going to be prepared foods. We do use a meal service at the moment for dinner, but then also 2 days a week, we do a cook-off. So we really want to implement that cooking skill. So everyone comes together as groups in their own rooms, and they come and collaborate together to make these dishes, and then it gets judged, and they seem to really enjoy it because they are learning skills that they've never had. They've never really cooked before, and they're learning all these things and realizing it's not too hard. After that, if someone is there for substance use, they will be going to an AA, NA, MA, GA, whatever it might be, one of those 12-step meetings, at least 4 to 5 times a week. After that, we will then do different social activities, whether it be board games, watching a movie, just things that we can get the community together. After that, we will then do nightly review goals, where we have talked about our day, what our highs, what our lows were, what we're grateful for. And then after that, they will have the night free. Some of the differences in those days, though, on Mondays, we will do grocery shops, where Amanda had shown you the lists that we use and the forms that we use, so that we can really work out what they need for their nutritional values. Saturdays and Sundays, we are, a lot less structured in a sense, but we are creating that structure. They don't have the groups that they really have during the week, but we are still trying to implement different ways to make sure that, they're staying active, they're getting out of their rooms, they have a busy day still. So our days wake up at 10, then we do volunteering at Verdi Square, where they'll help plant things, just trying to get people out and just enjoy the day. We do also different workouts, whether it be yoga, like I was talking before. We'll put like a yoga video on YouTube up in the common room just to get people moving again. We got our cook-off and so forth. On Sunday, then we have our house fun, where we'll go out on a different activity, like I was saying, the Brooklyn Bridge or anything like that. We will be implementing an alumni group as well as a book club. And that's kind of what the daily schedule is. And then by 11 o'clock and 10 o'clock, our overnight staff comes in to make sure that everyone is turning off their electronics so they can go to sleep, and make sure that they're going through the night totally good, so they get a healthy amount of sleep and they're ready for the next day. So here I just wanted to also just talk about some pictures and just show you kind of what the house is like. When someone moves in, they get what we call a dWELL pack. I love the name. It's very corny. I'm a big fan of it. So anytime we can use well, we use dWELL. So in the dWELL pack, it just gets all the forms that we kind of showed you, as well as a plant that you can take care of. Nextly, we just had a huge birthday bash because we had like 5 different residents have birthdays in the same week. So we created a whole little birthday party for everyone, just trying to get everyone together and know that everyone's being heard. As you can see, some of the pictures here are from our cooking groups. Like I said, they've never cooked before, and look at that. It looks like it can be in a restaurant. It's incredible. They're so happy. And also on the crafts projects, we brought some, different ideas where it came to painting, making little peacocks and figures. And this is what comes out of it. Like they don't realize when they first start what they can create. And then it becomes these beautiful artworks, and they didn't see this creative side in them, and showing them that there's so much more to them is just an amazing experience. And here's just another pictures of dWELL. On the left, we have our common room where, we do our morning reflection. People come to hang out and just talk with Jamie and myself, or the staff, just to, talk about their day, talk about their strengths, weaknesses, and going through what they're going through in that day. We also have some pictures of our plants. We have plants all throughout the rooms and throughout the house that are taken care of at all times. And then we have artwork from all the residents. We hang it up. We want them to show that you should be proud of what you've created. So all the artwork that is in dWELL has been created by dWELL residents, which is super cool. And last but not least, all is well at dWELL, our mantra.
James, I love it. I feel like there's been some great acronyms and terms that have come out this past year, and we're equally carrying the creativity on. So thank you, James, and thank you, Amanda. So guys, we have another 15 minutes or so, and wanted to really turn it over to you guys. If you have any questions or comments or experiences, you name it.
John, could you talk about the cost?
Absolutely. It's $10,000 a month. And that's inclusive of all phases. So that includes the chaperone services, that includes the food, that includes everything you just heard.
So therapy is on the outside at an additional cost.
Correct. So essentially, dWELL is non-clinical. So this is solely recovery housing. We're really focusing in on skills-based learning. We're very much clinically informed. dWELL is owned by 2 clinicians. Of course, we also own the dorm, so there's a lot of intersectionality between our clinicians at the dorm in terms of training and helping our staff come up to speed at dWELL, but it is a non-clinical model.
John, I have a question. Is that cost consistent throughout, or is it titrated down over time?
Consistent throughout. We also have a scholarship bed that we're going to be implementing. We scholarship 10% of our population at the dorm in both New York and DC, and we'll be designating a scholarship bed at dWELL as well.
Hey, John, how
Yeah.
kind of low functioning can you go? Like somebody who really needs a lot of support.
It's a great question. Amanda, why don't I turn that over to you?
Yeah, you know, we can handle a pretty high acuity when it comes to symptomatology and diagnosis. So if somebody, for instance, is still symptomatic, maybe they are diagnosed with bipolar disorder and they're still experiencing some symptoms of mania, but they're being followed closely by a psychiatrist. They are in a outpatient program where they're receiving very structured, intensive clinical services. We can handle that as long as they are not in a place where they are refusing to take all meds. They don't think that they have a problem. You know, in those cases, they really need to be in more of a hospital setting. But if we have somebody who, you know, most of our clients, this is the age group, right? Young adults don't often come to the dorm or come to dWELL saying, I'm so excited to be here. Can't wait to start treatment. That's not what we see 9 times out of 10. It's usually a client saying, my parents are making me be here. I don't want to be here, but I'll do it. And they will, with prompting. You know, left to their own devices, they might not take their meds, but with prompting, they will take their medication. And if that's the place that they are in, then we can handle a pretty high acuity. If somebody's getting into a place where they are refusing to take their meds, they're trying to divert medication, you know, cheek it, not swallow it, continuing to relapse, then they need to be in a setting that's you know, in more of a hospital type setting.
Yeah, I was actually thinking a little bit more on the cognitive side.
Okay.
Somebody who's a little lower, that's kind of what I meant, like how low.
Got it. So in terms of cognitively, we get a lot of clients who struggle and who are on the spectrum, and socially they struggle. So lacking social skills is something that we work on and that we can handle. However, I would say if their IQ is below a certain level, getting them more on the autistic side of the spectrum, it's probably not the right fit for them, just because they won't really feel like a part of the community. They'll feel like an outsider in the community, and that's not what they want. So there's no sort of like cutoff point, but it would be something that we would want if somebody is cuspy. If you were worried about something like that, we would want to speak to the client themselves and get a sense of sort of where they're at cognitively.
And Tom, just to piggyback on that, we use Dr. David Rowe. He's a part of our team at the dorm. He reviews all neuropsych testing coming in to sort of tease out that particular question and the appropriateness for the community, both at the dorm and at dWELL as well. So that will of course continue. Diedrich.
Amanda, how long do you anticipate the average student to be there, the average young adult?
I think it depends on where they're coming from. When we're getting clients that are coming from a wilderness program, residential treatment, typically it's about a month, month and a half, and then they're really ready to start transitioning into an apartment where they're still getting in-home services, but there's not staff 24/7. If they're coming to us trying to avoid needing to go to wilderness or to residential treatment in Utah, then they probably need to spend more like 3 or 4 months at dWELL before then transitioning. So for those people, this is sort of, you know, their primary experience, and we're creating true residential treatment in New York City. And the length of stay is just going to be a little bit longer to stabilize them. What we do is once we meet them on the front end and sort of assess and their clinical teams meet with them, we can provide a pretty good estimate. Obviously it's not set in stone, but generally speaking, clients who are coming to us having done a more intensive treatment stay prior to coming to us at 30-day program, 60-day program, wilderness, residential treatment, for 6 months, whatever it may be, their stays are shorter.
Follow-up question to that is, do you help families from out of town set up a team in New York? Because they're not going to have the connections at home. Now they could possibly continue to work, or a kid coming out of a residential treatment does not have a team that he brings with him from the residential treatment center. So how do you help them create the treatment center in New York, or the treatment team on the outside for them?
If they're an out-of-town family coming to us, not coming from wilderness or not coming from.
No, they're coming from an RTC, so they will not have a team that they can bring with them. So
Well, what we do in those instances is we speak to the current team and find out a lot about the client, diagnostically, clinically, where they're at, what their needs are, what has worked for them historically in their time in treatment. And then we'll, along with the providers, if there's somebody like you involved in the case, we'll all talk about, this is what we think would work really well for this client in New York, and make our recommendations based on that.
but those are all outside clinicians, not associated with the dorm or dWELL.
Well, they would, if the dorm is appropriate, then we would certainly say, we think the dorm is the appropriate place for you to do outpatient programming. If we don't think that the dorm is appropriate, then we would also say that as well.
Thanks.
I had a question come through on a text that I just wanted to address, and that's our staff and just sort of general sort of identification. So as we talked about gender affirming, we also have a large staff population that are part of the LGBTQ plus community. We have a staff population, we actually call them resident advisors, so RAs, that are also identified in the trans community. So there's quite a bit of diversity as far as the team goes as it relates to that as well.
I had a quick question about, this is kind of a piggybacking off staff, but I heard you mention that you do a lot of continual training with the staff that you have there, like weekly or bi-weekly. Is that open to public at all, or is that just specific with you guys? I don't know if you've ever had other people from other organizations come into that.
Are you saying come into the training?
Yeah.
So we haven't. Right now it's exclusive for the dWELL team. I think as we step into this sort of new landscape and look at how we can not only create a model at dWELL, but also help just recovery housing in general sort of evolve, that would very much be of interest to us to find ways that we can continue to not only present what it is we're doing, what our findings are, what our outcomes are, but what are some key ingredients as far as trainings related to this, because all of the other sober livings that I know in New York City are seeing a similar level of acuity. Whether or not they're equipped to really handle it has always been the million-dollar question. So helping others to gain this knowledge is very much a part of our mission. So if that's of interest, please get in touch. All right, I'll give it one more minute. Do we have a last question before we close out? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today on this. Obviously, we will be following up with our PowerPoint presentation, so you have all of that information. We recognize this is a new resource, so should there be any offline questions that folks have, we'll send out all of our personal information so we can keep that conversation going. We'll be back on April 8th with Ellenhorn, the leadership team from Ellenhorn, to talk about a year later and lessons and insights following a year of COVID around treatment and some of the evolution that we're seeing going forward. So we'll see you back here April 8th at 3 o'clock, and enjoy the 5 minutes you have before your 4 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.